Well, Mr. Boras, very nice to have you on the program.
It's a pleasure to be a part of the Korean dynamic and meeting you, Young. Pleasure.
So let's talk about the wonderful year St. Louis Cardinals had this year. They became the 2011 World Series champions, right? I bet you watched the game, of course.
Yeah, every game. We had actually, I believe, 7 or so clients in the World Series. And the good thing about a World Series, we have clients that it's very difficult to win a World Championship. And to see players achieve that goal is it's tremendous. Unfortunately, we also have players on the other team that become very close to it, and fortunately, they'll have another opportunity to win their rings.
Well, on a personal note, didn't you at one time play for Cardinals also?
Yes, I played in the minor leagues with the Cardinals for about 4 years, and also in the Cubs organization when I was traded to them after that.
And now you represent some of the Cardinal players like Kyle Lowes, Matt Holliday, Eric Jackson. Isn't that right?
Yes, yeah. Yes. All of them were, major contributors to their team in the postseason and during the season. So we're very happy for Matt, Edwin, and Kyle that they can certainly add to their careers that rare opportunity to say that they're a world champion.
And so being the World Series champions will have a huge impact in the further salary negotiation, I bet.
Well, it depends. I think for free agents, like Edwin Jackson is a prominent free agent, one of the top pitchers in the free agent market. A lot of teams, he's 27 years old, and a lot of teams are watching him very closely and how he performs in the postseason. For Matt Holliday, who's an integral part of the Cardinals and is in the middle of a long-term 7-year contract, very little impact on him. And certainly in Kyle Lowes in his career, he has a contract negotiation coming up after next season. So for players who are more near their contract term, certainly postseason performance in the current years becomes more relevant. Yeah, becomes more relevant.
So it is the busiest time of the year in terms of salary negotiation and whatnot, right?
Yes.
So can you explain the arbitration versus the free agency process, and how does that work in terms of your preparation?
Well, in baseball, we have a collective bargaining agreement, which is negotiated by the Major League Baseball Players Association and Major League Baseball officials. The product of that is that we have a player who has generally 3 or more years of Major League service, with a few exceptions, becomes arbitration eligible, where the negotiation is not unilateral. In other words, the team dictates the salary of the player just to the minimum requirement or above the first 3 years of a player's career. For the next 3 years, he's arbitration eligible, meaning that a neutral arbiter or panel of arbitrators, if you can't come to an agreement, they will then decide what value that player will have for the upcoming year. And in free agency, that is where the player is free to negotiate with the entire universe of teams, and that negotiation will set the value for the player when you have the right to talk to all teams.
So who are some of the arbitration players, and who are some of your free agent players that you represent currently who are in that negotiation process?
Well, certainly in arbitration, for Korean references, Sin-Soo Choo, who is in his 2nd year of arbitration and would be a free agent in 2 seasons. And in the free agent market this year, we have Prince Fielder, Edwin Jackson, Ryan Matson, to name a few. So normally on hand, we usually have around 15 or so free agents and 15 or so arbitration-eligible players annually.
I see. I want to talk about some of those record-breaking negotiations that you brokered. Can you tell us some of those and how you were able to negotiate for them?
Well, we're very fortunate. When we got into one of my first free agent clients was Greg Maddux, and we did a record contract for him back in the first 5-year contract for a pitcher back in 1990, and then we did the largest contract ever given to a player back in 97 for him, and then with Kevin Brown, he got the first 7-year contract for a pitcher and $100 million contract in baseball. And then with Alex Rodriguez, we got the first $200 million contract, and then the second time got him a contract that will probably have a value of around $300 million in his career.
How were you able to make those possible?
Well, I was raised on a farm, and the idea is kind of a twofold process, is that you know, the cow used to come to the barn and have a great deal of milk, and your job as the farmer was to milk the cow appropriately. And the same thing for players. Players do these things. Players create this value. These are men who are out in the field. They're working hard. They're advancing their skills. And the support people that are around them. And I think we have very important roles, but in answer, it is up to the player. It's really his work, his dynamic that brings to the negotiation arena. Now, there's no question that the same set of statistics and performance can often mean very different values. So it is a two-part process from that standpoint, but the foundation of it is that the players have to perform at very high levels and for long periods of time to attain those contracts.
Sure. And you also helped the left-hander pitcher, Brian Taylor. He was the #1 pick in 1991 in the amateur draft, right? And signed a contract with over $1.5 million bonus, right? At the time, that's a huge amount.
Yeah, Brian was an extraordinary draft pick. I mean, probably the best high school arm I've ever seen to the state.
And at the same time, wasn't it Yankees that offered him $350,000?
I think their first offer to him was $100,000.
Wow, and how were you able to do that?
Brian's mother, an extraordinary woman.
And she has
and his
a role
family.
in this?
Oh, she was the one that dealt with under the NCAA rules to keep his eligibility. I could not represent him. We have an interesting legal structure here with the NCAA, where the young boys are not allowed to have attorneys negotiate with teams. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but that's what they do. But we honored that rule, but we taught his mother basically how to negotiate this, and she did a remarkable job and followed the information and. In the end, yeah, it's an amazing story. She got her son $1.5 million, and he took that money and got his family a new home and changed their lives, and so it was really at the time a very important foundation to get bonuses in baseball to the equivalent of what they're paying in other sports. Because if we don't have extraordinary bonuses in baseball, the athletes will not play baseball; they'll go to football or basketball. And it's very important we have a structure that attracts the best athletes to baseball.
Sure. Let's talk about the amateur draft process. You made a huge impact again this year when you helped #1 overall pick and former UCLA pitcher, right, Jerry Cole?
Yeah, we're fortunate in that there are in the draft. It's probably a process where there are a few select athletes that have unique abilities and the ability to arrive in the major leagues in a very short period of time. Most draft picks, you can't say whether they're going to be a major leaguer or not. So the draft is kind of a unique universe in the sense that 99% of the players, there's probably a dramatic risk associated with whether or not they're going to make it or not. But there's a small select group like Garrett Cole or certainly Bubba Starling that you're involved with and representing, that they receive substantial bonuses. Multi-million-dollar bonuses, but they are the exception rather than the rule.
And it has a lot to do with the agent that is negotiating on their behalf too, I bet.
Well, I would say that recognition of the need for talent at the major league level certainly is important in negotiating the rights value for an entry-level player, because you have to have. We certainly have a history where, in the last 15 years, we have asked for $7 million or above bonuses only 4 or 5 times. And so we're very selective about who we ask for those bonuses, knowing that the talent's going to have to be that extraordinary, like a Steven Strasburg or a Bryce Harper.
Right.
Those types. And, from J.D. Drew or Stephen Drew on up, when we've asked for substantial bonuses, in every instance, it's worked out well for the team and well for the players. So it's certainly not the rule, but it's something that we're pleased that the draft system allows us to do, with the exception.
Sure. And you mentioned Stephen Strasburg and Bryce Harper. So 2009, 2010, and now with Jerry Cole, 2011, you've had success of negotiating a contract in millions of dollars. So how do you negotiate with the teams?
The draft process is a process where you're only allowed to negotiate with one team, the selecting team. Unlike free agency, where you're allowed to negotiate with 30 teams. So the process is very different, and it's handled very differently. And so when you only have one suitor, you're really looking to discuss with them, you know, because in one case you may have the same team and the same pick going from one year to the next. And we had a team that we negotiated a $6 million contract one year for the third or fourth pick in the nation. And the next year, with the same team and the same pick, we negotiated a $3 million contract. And the reason for that was the value of the player as perceived by the negotiating party representing the player and by the team and their scouting organizations. So normally, I think there's a relative trust that when we go into these negotiations that we're talking about common terms, common thoughts, and there is certainly a range that is discussed. But normally, in working these processes out, there's an understanding from the familiarity and the scouting and the examination of the athlete that they are, in fact, a value that is reasoned by both sides in conclusion.
I want to have some photo talk now because there are 3 Korean baseball players at the moment who are really, really known, and you represented them. So let's look at some of the photos, and we'll have photo talk.
Great.
The first one is Chan-ho Park. I know you know him. He was actually a symbol of hope and dream, not only to Korean baseball players, but to players from Asia. And you helped to negotiate 5-year contract with the Texas Rangers. Can you tell us the terms of that contract and how you were able to represent him?
Well, Chan-ho became the first player, you know, back in the early 2000s, the first Korean player to get, you know, a contract of that length and that level. I think it was 5 years, $65 million. And so he had an extraordinary 6 years with the Dodgers. Also, he received the largest arbitration settlement at the time of any player, where he got a $10 million settlement in arbitration. So he was performing at a very, very high level at the time, and certainly was rewarded with an appropriate contract.
How did you come to know him? When did you first meet him?
I saw Chan-ho pitch in San Antonio, Texas. And I met him when he was in the minor leagues. And we became to know one another. Then when he got called up to the big leagues, and then after a few years in the major leagues, he hired me to represent him.
Let's look at the next one. That's Kim Byung-hyun, right? And now he's currently playing in the baseball league in Japan, right? So what is the term of the contract that you helped to negotiate?
Well, we had a very, Kim was a friend of Chan-ho's, and we had a very short relationship. We just helped him out with really one contract in his career. And so we had a very short relationship with him.
But didn't he want to stay in the major league, but he had to go to Japan?
You know, abilities sometimes, you know, the level of abilities and the demand for talent, the teams select what players they believe have that ability, and certainly in their evaluation they felt that Kim was certainly capable of playing in Japan, but no longer capable of playing in the major league.
One more, Choo Shin-soo. I know you know this guy very well. Now, isn't he back in South Korea right now?
He is. He's fulfilling his military obligation in Korea.
And is he going to come back and resume his career?
Oh, yes, he'll be back. He has about a 6-week you know, duty tour that he has to fulfill pursuant to Korean law, and so he will be there doing that. And then, as soon as he's completed that, he's going to come back here and continue his workouts to ready himself for another very successful season in the big leagues.
I do want to talk about how you were able to broker his contract, because I think he got 9 times more than the previous contract he had, which had a longer term. How did you do that?
Well, I think that in the case of athletes with Chu is that when you become arbitration eligible in the right structure, then the negotiation becomes very different for all athletes. So their salaries, you normally see dramatic increases once they become arbitration eligible. We're very excited about him as a player. I think he's certainly rated among some of the best right fielders in the game, you know, the top couple. We think at his age, being the type of athlete he is, he's really what we call here a 5-tool player. He's a great defender. He has a very accurate arm, and he's got power and speed. So he is really something that a lot of major league teams covet. So He has the ability and the potential to be, at this point in time, the best Korean player in history.
Great. Well, that's nice to hear, because we have high hopes for him too.
Yes.
Are there any Korean players at the moment that you currently have eyes on?
Well, we have Yoon and Roo, who have had dramatic successes in the Korean League, and these players we think will have fine careers here in the major leagues, they certainly they have a posting system in Korea, and then and both of them are I think Yoon is eligible to be a free agent in 2013, and Roo in 2014, and so we're very excited about the prospect of their futures here, and we look forward to working with them and helping them advance their careers.
And they're currently your clients, right?
Yes, they are.
Yes,
and also we have Hak-Chu Lee, who is in the Tampa Bay organization, who is a part of a major trade for Garza, who's a prominent major league pitcher, and he has a very bright future in Major League Baseball. And in addition, we have an American who has interacted with Korean baseball, and Dustin Nippert, who had a fine year there, and is currently played in Korea all last year and is negotiating possibly to return.
Let's talk about the people that work at Boras Corporation. I mean, I did a little bit of a research and found that your employees at Boras come from very diverse background. You have like former NASA engineer, you have Harvard graduates. I mean, what are their main responsibilities that work at Boras Corporation?
Well, we have many departments here to operate to optimize the careers of our clients. We're the only representative firm, and first of all, we only represent baseball players. And we have football, basketball, boxers, companies call all the time to have us negotiate things, and we've really restricted our work to a 24/7 focus on baseball internationally, and certainly our Korean representative Al Chung is in Korea, and he's bilingual, speaks Japanese, goes to Japan, and we have a very strong understanding of Taiwan, Japan, and Korea throughout. Watching the KBO or the Japanese league. So in each dynamic, we are tracking and baseball all over the world. In the draft in America, we have employees in Venezuela, in Dominican Republic, we have Puerto Rico. So we cover wherever baseball is played and played at high levels. We have someone there providing information and resources of what is ongoing there.
Who does the actual negotiation? Is that you, based on all the research and the information your employees put together?
Well, we have a negotiation staff. We have a number of people, Scott Champerino or Mike Fiore or Mike Fischlin. We have a number, those all former major league players. We have a legal staff here of 3 attorneys. We have a database staff, which includes our employee from MIT and from NASA, that we develop our database. We've got a $6 or $7 million investment in a database that covers every statistic in the history of baseball. We draft and create our own software language, if you will, to assimilate and provide us access to that data. We have a development division which covers amateur, pro, and major league evaluation. And then we have our core executive staff. We're a relatively small company, but we have around 75 people, including our Sport Fitness Institute, which is devoted strictly to the nutrition, advancement, monitoring, and physical growth of our athletes.
And I think the fact that you are also a baseball player has a lot to do with understanding your clients. So, they may be your clients, but they become family members after all, aren't they?
The term family is broadly used in sports. Like teams talk about family. I don't think you trade a family member. I don't think family members are paid to be family members. But I think in our relationship is that what we are is that we're confidants. We're people that players look to provide them with very, very trusted information. And our goal, like their goal, we want to be the best at what we do. We strive every day to be better. And there's a wide variety of information that comes into us on a daily basis that I think can help us be better. And it comes comes sometimes from players, from teams, from parents, from a variety of resources that we have. And certainly our goal is to, in the end, grow the game, be responsible to the game. The game has given all of us everything we have in life. And so we want baseball to be successful for everybody. And we certainly want those people who are in it for a short period of time, we hope it provides them an education. We want them to be successful. You know, certainly like for those of us who got injured in our careers and we went on to college, and because of baseball, we were able to advance our education. So baseball should be able to help you, and there should be, in the end, if baseball's given someone a platform for success, some being great major leaguers, others being people who've gone on into success in other fields. But because of their interaction with the game, they've improved their lives.
Sure. I told you have a lot of Korean baseball fans in Korea, but you also have fans around the world. So actually we went out to the streets to meet with some of your fans, and they had some questions. So let's listen to their questions. Okay?
What made you decide to help the ace player of LA Angels, Jared Weaver, sign a new contract without making much noise?
Well, the question about Jared Weaver is one where, you know, our clients are, we help them make informed decisions, but we don't make decisions for them. And certainly we create options. And Jared Weaver knew full well that if he chose to become a free agent and examine the market, that he probably would have gotten a great deal more money than what his contract he received currently. But he was someone who wanted to stay at home, felt it was best for he and his family. And again, we work for the player, and we're very happy to provide the player with whatever their needs are, and certainly in this case, that was Jared's desire for us to help him do that.
Great. Well, next question.
Who is the most promising player in the next year's minor league season?
Certainly, there are a number of promising players that are coming, and I don't like to mention their names. I can only say that there are 3 or 4 offensive players that I think will provide a lot of power and a lot of excitement to Major League Baseball. And then we have some very, very fine young arms that are coming in that I think have the ability to be impactful #1 pitchers.
Great. One last question.
You helped your son sign with the Oakland A's, and your younger son drafted by the Milwaukee Brewers, but chose to go to USC to play baseball. What advice do you give your sons?
I certainly let my wife, Jeanette, represent them.
That's a tough question.
Yeah. No, I think for me, education is primary, and it is such a privilege to have your son play collegiate baseball and to get an education, and then have the opportunity to play professional baseball. And when you're around the Oakland A's system and you see the work that they've done to improve them in a very short period of time, you really realize that professionals and coaches, and that they really have a dramatic impact. And the pro game is a different game than the college game. It's a higher level of skill, and the talent has to be more refined, and the coaching is frankly extraordinary. But for me, for most players, I always recommend they go to college first. And you become more mature, you're a better learner, I believe. But for those few high school players that have extraordinary skills, I understand that there's a component that would lead them to pro baseball out of high school, but I think that should be the exception rather than the rule. So and the advice I've given my children is go to college and then pursue your pro careers after college.
I tell you, Scott, I would have done the same if it was my son asking me for advice. But on a personal note, I want to ask you what your future plans are.
My hope in life really has always been that I could get up in the morning and go to a ballpark every day. And my passion for it's not changed. We really, really enjoy our work and what we do. We really want to make a commitment to this game. And I think our best commitment is helping players grow, making sure players understand the value of their careers and the commitment to their careers, and for us to be best at what we do. I'm just beginning a renewed phase of my life and our work, and I plan on being here for another 30 years at least.
And we'll continue to see you for the next 30 years plus.
Okay.
Thank you very much for making the time today.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
There is no doubt that Scott Boras has a huge presence in Major League Baseball. And it's an incredible feat for one individual to have significant influence in a field like this. And you know what? I realized once again that there is always a reason behind success. That's all on today's Real Talk. See you next time.